Hello, my math friends. Welcome back to Studio Math. We have a question here from Bob. This is a mixture word problem. My main focus in this video will be to understand the concept of mixtures and how to set up the word problems for mixture word problems. I will skip a lot of the algebra. I would assume that at this point in math you are pretty comfortable with solving algebraic equations, so I'll kind of just zoom through that part. But again, here my focus is to focus on the setup, which is usually the hardest part for most people. Okay, let's read through this problem. A pharmacist needs to mix a 5% anti-cream with a 10% anti-cream to make a 50 milliliters of a mixture that contains 8% of the anti-cream. How much of the 5% cream and the 10% cream is needed? Now, before we actually answer that question, I'm going to go through a couple of points here. You'll see here on the right, I've put a little side note problem here. This is not the actual work for this problem. This is to understand the idea of mixtures and how to set up the word problems for mixture word problems. So I used really easy numbers to help you understand the concept. So let's pretend that we have these cylinders, these cups of liquid. Now in the first cup here, we're going to have 100 milliliters of the liquid, and let's say it's water, and part of that liquid is acid, so I've shaded that in green. And so what we'll call this is a 25% solution, meaning that 25% of this water, or this solution here, is part of that is acid, the green. Now I have another cup here with the same amount, 100 milliliters of liquid. Part of that liquid is going to be acid, and in this case, 50% solution, 50% of the total in there will be acid. And then when we mix these two together into another container, we're going to end up with 200 milliliters of liquid, right? 100 plus 100 makes 200. And the percentage of acid will now be 37.5%. So let's go through the math of that and just understand why that is the way it is. If we talk about percentages, we know if we want to find the percent, the amount of something, we just multiply, right? So if I say there's 100 milliliters of liquid in here and 25% of it is acid, we'd say 25%, convert it to decimal, 0.25 times 100 is 25 milliliters. So there are 25 milliliters of acid in this first container. Same idea goes for container number 2. We have 100 milliliters of liquid and 50% of it is acid. So what is 50% of 100? Easy numbers to understand this concept will be 50 milliliters of acid, right? And if we kind of just think about this acid part, when we combine both of these containers, it makes sense that 25 plus 50 would give us 75 milliliters of acid in this container when we put them together. And again, like I mentioned before, when we put them together, it's a total of 100 plus 100 is 200. So if we think about it, 75 out of 200, well, just taking out my calculator, I'm going to get 0.375. So we're going backwards to figure out this percent, and we get 37.5%. So after we combine them, it's 37.5% solution acid in there. Now, if we just kind of just put together the math and tie it all together, we're going to get 0.25, and I'm just going to box this here, 0.25 times 100 plus 0.5 times 100 equals 0.375 times 200. And if you do the math, you're going to get 25 plus 50 equals 75. So hopefully that helps you understand the idea of how the equation can be created for any mixture problem, whether you're mixing creams, as in this problem, or say you're at the grocery store and you want to make a snack mix and you want to mix almonds with M&Ms. uh, you know, you can do the same thing, use the same concept here because you're mixing things together. And let's say you have this crazy, I don't know, like thing for having 20% M&Ms in your trail mix, then you can do that here and do some math to figure out how many M&Ms you should buy, how many pounds, whatever it is that you're going for. So that being said, we can now jump into this word problem and deal with these unknowns in the same concept of this. And really the basic idea I want you to get is percent times the total plus the percent times the total of the other solution will give you percent times total of it mixed together. Now, if you can just remember that, that's great. So reading this problem, we have a pharmacist needs to mix 5% anti-cream with a 10% anti-cream. And while that is illustrated here, let's imagine these circles represent the bottle or container of cream. I don't know how much of the cream I have in that container, so we're going to call it X. Again, we use variables for things we don't know. And then but I do know that 5% of it is whatever the anti-cream, maybe it's the medicinal part of the cream. And then in cream number 2, we have it's 10%, and it's 50 minus X amount. Now, where did I get that from? Well, I know that I'm going to make 50 millimeters total, right? So that would mean that if this is X, this cream is X, well, the total minus X would give me what's left in this container. So that's how those variables come into play here. So you kind of have to think about it and imagine, like, what do I know? What do I not know? Kind of make a picture here to help you visualize and connect the dots with the math. And hopefully you can get through that. The next part here is, just putting it together, following these concepts that I explained earlier. It's percent times the amount in the container plus percent times the amount in the second container will equal percent times the amount in the total mixed container. And I got all this information from my word problem, right? So we put all of that together, we make a diagram, we label it so we know where our numbers are, and we continue on. Now again, I'm going to skip, like I said before, the algebra here. I assume at this point you know how to solve for X. When we do the work, we're going to get X equals 20. Now in the word problems, you always want to go back and see what are they asking again. So it says how much of the 5% cream and the 10% cream is needed. Well, since we did find X, that relates to this cream. So we can say we're going to need 20 millimeters. I want to say that's probably supposed to say milliliters, but that's what the word problem says here. But anyways, regardless of the units, 20 millimeters of cream 1 will be mixed with, okay, how do I find the amount in cream 2? Well, 50 minus 20 gives me 30 millimeters in cream 2. And there we have our answer to this question. Now, if you need some extra help, feel free to contact me. I am available for private tutoring, and the link is in the description below. Otherwise, I encourage you to go back through this problem, see if you can think your way through this, connect the dots with the numbers, draw the diagram, label it, and then put the math together and get through the word problem on your own. That's all for today. Good luck.